Hello. Listen to it somewhere. Hello. Yeah, can I be heard? Hope it's nice and clear now. Yeah. Hello. Am I being heard clearly? You hear me clear? Hello. The slight audio snag. Sorry about that. I hope it's audible. Yeah. Yeah, I can hear myself clearly. I think the problem is solved. We can see the number of. Okay. It's coming the other way. Yeah, hello everyone. Sorry about the technical glitch. We had faced some audio problems, so yeah, that's right. So welcome again, everyone, and this is Chiranjeev. And we had already started the session, and there was some technical glitch and so on. So I was talking briefly about the verbal section of the Infosys test papers, and it roughly is divided into 7 different categories. So we have a section on reading comprehension, then we have something on sentence completion, sentence correction, then we have a section on analogies, verbal analogies, and we have some para jumbles where a paragraph is given, but the order of the sentences are all in the wrong order. So you have to figure out in which order the paragraph would flow. And we have something called fill in the blanks over there, which has a missing word. You have to fill in the missing word, the appropriate word, or some missing prepositions mainly. And then we have something called one-word substitutions as well, which basically tests your vocabulary. So starting off, there's this, I hope the PPT, the PowerPoint presentation has been shared with you on the verbal ability section. So we are not going to start off with the first section, reading comprehension, because it's going to take a bit of time. It's a pretty lengthy passage, so we'll get into that a little while later. We come to the next part, which is about sentence completion, sentence correction, I'm sorry. And there are these list of exercises which are given over here. Now, when you come to an exercise like sentence correction, many different kind of errors might be highlighted in the sentence. So the sentence is given, and one part of that, maybe a phrase or something, is in bold or italics or capitalized, in which something may be wrong. Okay, not is always wrong. So one of the options that are given, one of the correct options may be, it's same as what is already given. There's no error at all. So you have to figure out whether there is really something wrong or not. So, and many different kind of errors might come up. Some errors may be the use of inappropriate words, not inappropriate, I would say the wrong words used in the wrong place. Or there may be errors with regards to some grammar functions like, say, tenses and so on, or the use of the wrong preposition in it. So many different kind of errors you will have to look out for. So, and as with everything, practice makes perfect. The more you practice these exercises on sentence corrections, the more better you are likely to score in your tests. So we have this collection of exercises over here. We have, there's an question over here, which is given for sentence correction. It says, in addition to enhance the repetition through strategic use of philanthropy, companies are sponsoring social initiatives to open new markets. Now, when we read through the sentence, this phrase over here, to enhance their reputation, is given in bold. Now, we have to figure out whether there's really something wrong in this sentence or not. Now, when we go through the sentence, we see, in addition to enhance their reputation, the companies are sponsoring social initiatives. So when they say the companies are sponsoring, it is stated in the continuous tense, in the present continuous tense. So anytime we construct a sentence which is made up of 2 parts, like over here, it's broken into 2 chunks. One of the chunks need to agree with the other chunk. There shouldn't be a change in the tense we are using. So one of the tenses cannot be past, the other tense cannot be the continuous tense in this case. So over here, companies are sponsoring social initiatives. It's present continuous. So to enhance their reputation, okay, even that should have been in the uh, continuous tense, in the present continuous tense. So let's go through the options which are given here. And the options, first option is given of enhancing their reputation. The second option is given to having enhanced their reputation. The third option to enhancing their reputation. And the fourth option to have their reputation enhancing. The fifth option, no correction required. Now, to get through a question like this, you really need to have a good grounding of the rule of tenses. Now, many people read tenses way back from school when we've been studying all the 12 different tenses. And but what really escapes many of the people are when and how do we usually use these tenses? Yeah. So coming back to this question, we'll come back to the use of tenses in a bit. So coming back to this question, the correct option over here is something which is in the present continuous tense. So over here it is number A, which says of enhancing their reputation. In addition to, sorry, it's option number C, which says to enhancing, in addition to enhancing their reputations through strategic use of philanthropy. That is the correct answer. It flows in the present continuous tense. Now, we have to remember things like when we use tenses, what kind of situations we use these tenses in. Like when we speak of the present continuous tense, when do we use the present continuous tense? We know we add an ing to every continuous tense, and to a present continuous tense, we either use is, am, or are, and then the verb plus the ing. So we use the present continuous tense to talk of things that are happening right now. Like I am talking to you and you are listening to me. Most probably you are learning some new things. So I am talking everything in the present continuous tense. And because we use it to talk about things that are happening every day, it is also the most commonly used tense in the English language, at least one of the most commonly used tense in the English language. Now, when you look at, say, a simple present, okay? Now, a simple present is just a basic form of the verb. It can say to enhance their reputation. Simple as that. That's the basic form of the verb. So when do we use the present simple tense? We use it to talk about things that are happening every day and which always happen no matter what. So when we talk of universal truths or facts, when we talk of habits or routines, we use the present simple tense. And things like, you know, I wake up every day at 7 o'clock in the morning. I wake up, nothing, no addition over there. So it's a universal truth, not a universal truth. It's your habit, your routine, what you do every day. I eat dinner every night. You say the sun rises in the east. It's a universal fact. Water freezes below 0 degrees Celsius. All universal facts. And when we talk of the past simple tense, okay, the simple past tense, we use the verb form, and then we just add a D after the verb in the case of regular verbs. And in the case of irregular verbs, the forms may change. So an irregular verb like, say, shine, the past form of this verb would be, you know, shown, and so on. And but most of the problems occur when not in the simple tenses or in the continuous tenses, because these tenses are mostly very easy to figure out. Most of the things happen, most of the problems happen when we come to the perfect tenses. That's when many people get confused. And since they don't know where exactly perfect tenses are used, they end up making a lot of mistakes when they use the perfect tenses. So briefly, through our simple tenses, we talked of the past simple. I mean, we know we use it to talk of anything that is in the past. So it can be 1 minute in the past. It can be 10,000 years in the past. Past is past. We always use the simple past over there. For the simple present, I told you we use it for habits, facts, routines, and so on. And for the simple future, any event that might be happening in the future, 1 second in the future, 10,000 years in the future, doesn't matter. Future is future. So in the case of future tense, just before the verb, the main verb, we just put a will over there, and it becomes the future. Simple as that. For all the future tenses, there is always a will which goes on. So coming to the continuous tenses, when we use a past continuous tense, we use the form of the verb. I think if I show that to you visually, it's going to be more effective. So just a brief rundown of the tenses, because many of the questions in sentence correction would come from a lot of tenses, would involve a lot of tenses, question on tenses. So when we talk of the past continuous, the form which we use is normally was or were, and then the verb and the ing. Okay, the basic form of the verb and then the ing. So I was eating dinner last night, and we were playing chess yesterday, and so on. So now the question over here is we have to choose between was and were. So it causes a lot of confusion among many people, like where exactly should we use was, where exactly should we use were. So I'll give you a just a basic clue on how to use was and were over here. So you might have heard of the voices in English being in the first person, the second person, and the third person here. Okay. Now, what are these different persons? So the first person is the one who is talking. In this case, it's me. So I am the first person. The second person is directly the person you are talking to, and it is you. Okay. So we are talking about all the singular forms, but there are also plural forms of these. Okay. So are you, the third person is the person we are talking about. So I am talking to you about him or her. So we say he or she, or if you are not very sure of the gender, if it's some inanimate things, we say it. Okay. So about the plural forms, the first person plural, we are talking. So we say we. Second person, it remains you. You might be talking to one person or two persons or 10 persons. It's still you. I'm talking to you, all of you. So third person over here, he, she, and it happens to be the singular forms. So for the plural forms, we have we. Sorry, we is the first person. So over here, it's going to be they. Okay. So the question is, when you are using the third person singular, he, she, or it, that is where all the problems come in, and the verb form starts to change shape. So over here, if notice for the past continuous, we use I was sleeping, and you were sleeping always. He, she, or it was sleeping. And for all the plurals, it is were. So we were, you were, they were, but I was and he, she, or it was always. And we use it to talk of things that are happening in the past continuous. But even the past simple talks about things that are happening in the past. So why the past continuous? We use the past continuous to talk of activities which have which run through a period of time. So it's got a time frame. Like when you're sleeping last night, you say, I slept for 8 hours. I was sleeping last night, because the sleeping activity happened for a period of time which lasted for like 6 hours or 8 hours or something. But if I talk of something like, say, I fell down from the bed in the middle of the night. So I will not say I was falling down from the bed, because falling down is not a continuous activity. It happens in a fraction of a second. You just thud. You just fall off your bed and you fell. It's just 1 second. So we use the simple past tense over here. So instead of saying I was falling from the bed last night, we'll say I fell from the bed, but I was eating my dinner last evening. I was sleeping last night. So the major difference between simple past and past continuous over here. We talked with the present continuous. It is basically the same thing. So the present continuous over here. So we still have the V1 ing forms over here, but instead of was and were, what we do is instead we use is, am, and are, and then we go for the ing form of the verb. So so let's come to our first person, second person, and try to match it again. I is always am. We are. So all the plural forms take are. You are, be it singular and plural. You is always are. And they are, but he, she, or it is. Okay. He is sleeping. I am sleeping, and we are sleeping. Okay. And we use it to talk of things that are happening right now. Right now, I'm talking to you. You're listening, learning maybe. So these kind of things. And we talk of the future continuous over here, just for a second. And we know for the future, any of the future tenses, we use the ing forms of the verbs for the continuous, and over here will be will be. I just said it. So will be. So I will be sleeping tonight, preferably a good sleep. Same with you. So all of them doesn't change forms. It'll be will be doing this, will be doing that. So anytime we talk of anything in the future, any event which might go on for a period of time. So we use the future continuous over here. Now we come to the tough ones, the perfect tenses. Now this is where people make the most mistakes are made in the perfect tenses. So we have a quick run through of the perfect tenses and try to explain it in terms of how they are used. So we come to the past perfect first, okay, and we come to the form of the past perfect. We know the form of the past perfect is had, and then the third form of the verb. Now the third form of the verb is the past participle form of the verb. Every verb has three forms. We have the basic forms, for example, say drive, and then we have the past form, which is called the V2 form in some circles, and they say drove, drive becomes drove. Then we have the V3 form, the third form of the verb, or the past participle form of the verb, which becomes drove becomes driven. So drive, drove, and driven. So we always use the third form of the verb in the past perfect tense. And when do we use the past perfect tense is when there are two things happening in the past. For making a past perfect sentence, you always need two things in the past. So one of them happened before and one of them happened after. Like today morning, I woke up at say 7 o'clock, and then I ate breakfast at 8 o'clock. So two things happening in the morning today, and both of these things are in the past. But one of them happened before, one of them happened after that. We use the past perfect to figure out which part happened before, which part happened after that. So we know we woke up before and we had breakfast after that. So the waking up part, the part which happened before, will be stated in the past perfect, and the part which happened after that is usually stated in the simple past. So we say, I had woken up at 7 o'clock. Had, third form of the verb wake is woken. I had woken up at 7 o'clock and then ate breakfast. Ate breakfast is simple past. So we know this thing happened after the past perfect part of the sentence. Another example would be you're going to the train station to catch a train, and then you are late and the train leaves. So by the time you reach the station, the train is gone. So which thing happened before? We have two actions in the past over here. One is you reaching the station. The other is the train leaving. Now, what happened before? The train left before. Okay, otherwise you would have caught the train, right? So the train leaving, you will state in the past perfect tense. You will say the train had left or had gone by the time I reached the station. Okay, so by the time I reached the station, you reach after that. So it's stated in the simple past tense, reached. I hope you're clear with the past perfect tense, and we always use to compare two things in the past. that is only when you'll use past perfect. So quickly, let's come over to present perfect. Come over to our present perfect. Now, why you're getting into tenses is it is one of the most fundamental concepts in grammar in the language, and many of these questions, especially sentence corrections, carry tense questions. So it is very important that everything is clear. You know which tense to use where, and also the forms for this. So the present perfect, the form first we have or has, and then the third form of the verb over here. So we use the present perfect to talk about life experiences. Like I have done this, I have gone there, I have eaten this, I have driven that, I have been to Antarctica, say. So that is an experience which, even though it's in the past, that experience you carry all the way till the moment you die. So that experience is always true to you, even in the present. So you can always say, I have driven a battle tank, or I have eaten a crocodile, or anything like that. One experience to describe it. And then we have the form of this, have eaten or has eaten. The question is, when do we use have, when to use has. Now it's very simple. Has is just used only for the third person singular. So he has eaten a snake. She has gone to the moon. It has, you know, how it flows. So has for the third person singulars, and for everything else we'll use have. So I have done this, we have gone there, you have eaten that, and they have driven that, and so on. So to talk of life experiences, we use the present perfect always. We come to our the last tense we are going to discuss for the day. We are not getting into the perfect continuous tenses, because that's another huge topic in itself, and it's going to take a lot of time. So future perfect, okay. Future perfect. First, the form of the future perfect. We speak about will, always with any future tenses, will, have, gone, or any other third form of the verb. So we use the future perfect to talk of completed actions in the future. Okay. Now, any action that might be completed by that period of time. So I can say, I will have finished my session by 3 o'clock today. Okay. So we are talking of something in the future, some completed action in the future. And for that, we use will have in the third form of the verb over here. So I hope the concept of tenses is a little clear in your heads, and you'll be able to answer many questions in your sentence corrections as well. So getting back to our PPT over here, we spent a lot of time with tenses, but that was required because this is like a very, very important topic. So we come to a sentence correction over here, and we discussed the first one. So we are maintaining C to be the answer for the first one, to enhancing their repetition. Okay, so we come to the second one over here. It says, acquisition of certain specific skills can be facilitated from general awareness, education to novel situations. Okay, and the part that has been in bold is can be facilitated from, and the options given is can be facilitated by, may facilitate through, can be facilitated with, and may be facilitated with, and no correction required, the last option over here. And you might have guessed the answer over here. Acquisition of certain specific skills can be facilitated by. Okay, so it's a wrong preposition that's been placed over here. It's been given from in the sentence. So from is the wrong preposition, really. So it's a question of preposition over here. The uses and the different kinds of prepositions we use in different places. So over here, number A is the correct option. It says acquisition of certain specific skills can be facilitated by general awareness, education to novel situations. Okay, so nothing much to explain here. It's just about the use of prepositions. So how do we learn about prepositions? Well, there is only one way to learn about prepositions, which is by studying them. Because there are a whole lot of prepositions in the English language, and these prepositions have been divided into certain categories like prepositions of place, prepositions of time, prepositions of manner, of direction, of position, and so on. So you really need to make a list of the prepositions and use it, see its use in different kinds of sentences. How are they used in different forms? So that's the only way to go about prepositions, is by memorizing them. No other way, no shortcuts. So we come to the next one. It speaks about the mole. If you know, the mole is a small little animal, a rodent, small like a rabbit. Okay, so it says the mole is a nocturnal insectivorous mammal regarded as pests by gardeners because of their burrowing activity spoiling lawns and gardens. Now, there may be few words over here which the meanings may not be clear to some of you. So the mole is a nocturnal. Now, what's a nocturnal mammal? It says we know what are mammals. So what is nocturnal? Nocturnal is something, any being or any animal which is active at night. So the owls are supposed to be nocturnal animals. Some species of wolves and some reptiles and so on are very active at night. So they are nocturnal mammals over here. Insectivorous, the ones which lives on insects, eats insects for the food. So the part which is wrong over here is given as regarded as pests by gardeners because of their burrowing activity spoiling lawns and gardens. Okay, so the options which are given here is option number A. It says regarded as pests by gardeners because of the burrowing activity spoiling. Okay, the next one is given regarded to be pests by gardeners because of the burrowing activities spoiling. C is given as regarded as a pest by gardeners because of burrowing activity spoiling. Okay. The option D is given considered as a pest by gardeners because of its burrowing activity spoiling. Again, the last option which is given regarded as a pest by gardeners because of its burrowing activity, because its burrowing activity spoils lawns and gardens. Now over here, many of these may not be really wrong if you put any of that, but the best way to put the sentence is by putting in option E, the last option, which says the mole is a nocturnal insectivorous mammal regarded as a pest by gardeners because of its burrowing activity spoils lawns and gardens. Okay, so it's given in much more detail in the last option. So it's really a question of choice over here, and not really of something being really wrong or really right, which sounds best in a sentence. So, and for tackling questions like these, again, no shortcuts, no shortcuts. I'm afraid the verbal ability section can only be excelled at by students who have practiced a lot. No shortcut to success. You have to practice. You have to get your concepts right. Like we explained the concept of tenses just a while back. So there are different concepts in grammar. So if you get the concepts right, and if you have a good foundation, if you have a good vocabulary, and a good vocabulary is only possible if you read. There is no other way. It is no use if you learn 20 new words every day and you write it down and try to memorize the meaning. Okay, you just forget half of them, more than half of them, after you go back. So the only way is constant reading, and once you encounter these words again and again, that's when it really sits in your memory and you never forget it. So read all you can while you have the time and improve your vocabulary and improve every aspect of your language. No shortcuts. Okay, the fourth one over here, it says, critics charge that Indian Cricket Associations lobbied for stadiums with fewer seats to reduce supply and increase ticket prices. Okay, so the section over here which says lobbied for stadiums with fewer seats to reduce supply and increase ticket prices It's given in bold. So that is the section you have to decide if something really is wrong. And if I read through this, uh, there is nothing really wrong with the sentence. I mean, if I wouldn't have come in sentence correction, we might have just gone through it without even realizing there was a mistake over here. So let's get through the options over here. The first option says, lobbied for stadiums with fewer seats to reduce supply and increase ticket prices. The second option says, lobbied for stadiums that had been built with fewer seats to reduce supply and increase ticket prices. C says, lobbied for stadiums that had less seats to reduce supply and increase ticket prices. Option D says, lobbied for stadiums that has less seats as a means of reducing supply so they could increase ticket prices. Number E says, no correction required. Okay, so over here, if you look at it, these expressions that are used over here, in some of them they have said fewer seats, in some of them they have said less seats. Now, when we talk of something like seats, and they are, which part of speech would they fall in? Nouns, of course. They are a thing. It's a seat. It's a chair. So nouns fall into countable and uncountable nouns. With countable nouns are those nouns you can count on your hands. Like I have 5 fingers on this hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can count them. It's a countable thing, fingers. But if I talk of something like water, for example, I cannot count water. I cannot say, give me 1 water, 2 water. Water is water. So with uncountable nouns like that, we use less. Okay, we have very less water in the house. We have less milk. But fewer, we use it for countable nouns, things we can count. So seats will always be fewer. It will not be less. Okay, so that eliminates 2 of the options over here, which says less seats, which is option C and D. It says that had less seats to reduce. So that is completely out of the question over here. So no change. These 2 options will not be the correct answer in any case. So let's go to the other options. It says, lobbied for stadiums with fewer seats to reduce supply and increase ticket price. Lobbied for stadiums that had been built with fewer seats to reduce supply and increase ticket prices. I think option B sounds the best over here, even though there's nothing really wrong with option A, but option B definitely describes the thing much better. It says that had been built with fewer seats, stadiums that had been built with fewer seats. More better explained, and just sounds better as a whole. So the correct option is option B over here. Okay, so jumping over other sections, because we cannot really afford to spend a lot of time in one topic, because it's going to take a lot of time and we have limited time for our webinar. So moving over to this section, which is called para jumbles. Okay, now what is para jumble? It's a paragraph which is given, and the sentences in the paragraph are given in different order. They are not given in the order which is meant to be. So you have to number these paras 1, 2, 3, 4. How is it going to go? Which which sentence is going to come first? Which sentence is going to come after that? Okay. So we have a list of around a couple of exercises here. So let's get to it. It says, choose the most logical order of sentences from among the given choices to construct a coherent paragraph. Yeah. So it says, Walmart has increased its Procter & Gamble diaper business by 50% and cut inventory by 70% because of the collaboration. That's the first sentence over here. And the second sentence says, several years ago, senior executives from Procter & Gamble and Walmart met for 2 days. The next sentence is, as a result of this meeting, a team of Procter & Gamble employees moved to Bentonville, Arkansas, Walmart's headquarters, to work with Walmart executives' productivity and quality issues. And The last option says they wanted to explore how they could jointly apply quality management principles to the disposable diaper business. Okay, so let's look at the paragraph. Let's look at the sentence which can form the best beginning in this case over here. So Walmart has increased Procter& Gamble diaper business as the first sentence. Several years ago, senior executives from Procter& Gamble and Walmart met for 2 days. I think this is a very general statement, and it can form the first statement of the paragraph over here. It looks likely that this is the first statement because this is a general statement. It says several years ago, what happened? People from these two companies met for 2 days. So number two is definitely the first sentence over here. And after that, we have, as a result of this meeting, a team of Procter& Gamble employees, maybe number four over here, they say they wanted to explore how they could jointly apply quality management principles to the disposable diaper business. Okay, now this looks likely to follow sentence number two, which is our first sentence. So sentence number four should ideally be following sentence number three because they talked of people from these two meetings. And then after that, this is what happened. They wanted to explore what happened in the meeting. What did they want to do? So jointly apply quality management principles to the diaper business. So I guess two is first, number four is second, and there is an option given here. It's option number B, which says 2, 4, 3, and 1. So this looks like the most likely option over here. So 2, we know it's a general statement. It says people from these two companies met, general statement. The fourth sentence over here, it says what happened in the meeting. So what did they decide to do? To implement some quality management principles to the diaper business. That's number 2. The next one, I think it's most likely number 3. As a result of this meeting, what happened as a result of this meeting? Okay, a team of Procter & Gamble employees moved to Bentonville, Arkansas, Walmart's headquarters, to work with Walmart executive productivity and quality issues. I think that is our third sentence. So we go 2, 4, 3. That leaves number 1, which is our last sentence. So the correct option over here will be option number B. So it says 2, 4, 3, and 1. Okay, so we see here these jumbles. They also take a lot more time to solve because you have to go through the lines properly, really dig through the lines, read between the lines, and decide in which order does it flow. So you need some really intensive and really critical reading, which needs to be done to solve para jumbles. So the second one, the second para jumble, which is on your PPT, it says number 1, risk stemming from fluctuations in exchange rate loans hover constantly on the horizon of foreign investment. And number 2 says, in view of the higher risk, a firm contemplating foreign investment would naturally expect a higher rate of return. The third sentence says, a multinational company may be accused of profiteering, even when it may simply be following the sound financial practice of asking for a higher rate of return commensurate with risk characterizing the project. Oh, long sentence there. And number 4, the last sentence given. In addition, foreign investment is subject to discriminatory treatment and selection control in various forms. Now, if you look at this, the first sentence, risk stemming from fluctuations in exchange rate loans hover constantly on the horizon of foreign investments. Okay, this seems likely to be our first sentence. Most likely, this is our first sentence. It's a general sentence. So the second sentence, which can come after this, we have to really read through the lines here. It says, in view of the higher risk, a multinational company may be accused of, okay, in addition, a higher rate of return, in addition, a foreign investment is subject to, okay, so we are basically establishing the subject over here, okay, and the subject is exchange rate loans or it's foreign investment. subject over here is foreign investment. So we have question number, the sentence 1 as the first sentence in para jumble. And the second sentence is again talking about foreign investment, the main subject over here. So that is likely to be our next sentence. So after the first sentence, it's option 4, it's sentence 4, which says, in addition, a foreign investment is subject to discriminatory treatment and selection control in various forms. So 1, 4, that leaves us with the option A. It says 1, 4, 2, and 3. And so let's read through it in that order. Okay. So we read number 1 first. It says, risks stemming from fluctuations in exchange rate loans hover constantly on the horizon of foreign investment. In addition, foreign investment is subject to discriminatory treatment and selection control in various forms. In view of the higher risk, a firm contemplating foreign investment would naturally expect a higher rate of return. Then the last sentence is, a multinational company may be accused of profiteering, even when it may simply be following the sound financial practice of asking for a higher rate of return commensurate with risk characterizing the project. Okay, so a little tough one at this. And so option number A over here is the right option. 1, 4, 2, and 3 in that order of sentences. So we come to our next para jumble and our last one. And it reads like this. The first sentence says, teacher preparation must ensure development of commitment among teachers. The second sentence says, with all the limitations and deficiencies inherent in our educational system has to be achieved only through combined effort of teachers and community. Third sentence, it is a tough proposition when most of the other sectors are influenced by self-interest and material pursuits everywhere. A value-based approach must form the backbone of educational system and also the teacher education system. And number 5 says, however, teacher education needs to emphasize that teachers alone can kindle the value-based growth. Now we have to find out over here the toughest one, okay, the sentence which should start this paragraph, okay, and if you read through it, okay, it seems we have to establish the subject matter in the first line. So the subject matter, what's the subject matter? It's, I think, about the educational system, the deficiencies in the educational system. So if you look at it, sentence number 2, which speaks about with all the limitations and deficiencies inherent in our educational system has to be achieved only through combined effort of teachers and community. So number 2 for me is the beginning sentence. It establishes the subject matter. And then the next sentence is a tough proposition when most of the other sectors are influenced. I don't think so. This is coming after that. There is no connection between sentence number 2 and this. Sentence number 4, a value-based approach must form the backbone of education system and also the teacher education system. Now, this should ideally follow sentence number 2. So this is the second sentence in the paragraph. And sentence number, the next one is, we already talked about teacher education system. So the first sentence over here talks about teacher preparation. So that should be coming after this ideally. It says teacher preparation must ensure development of commitment among teachers. And then it's, I think, number 3. It is a tough proposition when most of the other sectors are influenced by self-interest and material pursuits everywhere. So if we look through the options, it's option number B, which says 2, 4, 1, 3, and 5. So that is the correct option over here. Okay. So moving over to our next section, it's the section on analogies. Now, what are analogies? In an analogy, 2 sets of words are given, and both the sets are not given. One of them is left blank, or one part of one is left blank. It can be either ways. So now you have to solve analogies, you have to find out first the clue. the relationship between the first pair of words. So, the same kind of relationship should also follow the next pair of words. So you have to choose the most appropriate option among them. So suppose you're given an analogy, like to give you an example, um, a hand, a hand, and elbow. Okay, this part is your elbow. This is your hand, and sorry, your hand would be this. This is your arm. So let's put arm and elbow. Okay, and it may ask you your leg. Okay, leg, and the options can be toes, ankle, knee, hip, and so on. Now you have to decide what resembles the same relationship. What is a elbow to a arm? What would the thing be for a leg? Okay, so the correct option is a knee, because the knee is the exact midpoint of the whole leg, just like the elbow is the midsection of the whole arm. So that is how you build relationships. Now, relationships can also be built around different things, like say they may give synonyms, words having the same meaning. So say brave, and then say courageous. Okay, they both mean the same thing. So we can say maybe afraid and maybe timid would form the same kind of analogy. So they are synonyms. It can also be opposites, antonyms. They can have opposite meanings. We can say a night and day. Then they may ask you what is summer too. Okay, so we have the options: spring, monsoon, winter, autumn, and so on. So night and day are opposites. So summer and winter would be the correct analogy for that. So we have a list of analogies over here, and we go with one of them. It says the first one says particular and fussy. Okay, so they are synonyms, words having the same meaning. Okay, particular and fussy, basically the same thing. So the next set of words, one of them is missing. The other one says subservient. Now you have to know what do you mean by subservient, and we go through the options. It says meek, above, cranky, and uptight. Okay, so subservient means someone who is working under you and who is not very, who doesn't have a lot of, let's say, courage. Okay, they are very timid, or they may be very shy, and that is why they only follow you in whatever you say, like a almost like a slave, subservient. That's how the word comes. So we know the option number A, meek. Meek also basically means the same thing: one who is not strong enough, one who is very shy, very timid. He is meek. So meek is the correct option over here. So A, we say meek is to subservient, what particular is to fussy. Okay, so we come to the next analogy, which says poetry is to rhyme, philosophy is to what? So the options given here are option A, imagery; option B, music; option C, bylaw; option D, theory. Now, what is poetry and what is rhyme? You know what is poetry, right? So a rhyme is a form of poetry. It is the physical appearance of poetry on a page. That is a rhyme. So poetry is used, or it's expressed through the use of rhyme. So how is philosophy expressed? Is it expressed through imagery, where you imagine certain figures in your head to give you ideas of things? I don't think so that is happening. Do you express philosophy through music? Of course not through music. And we don't explain philosophy through bylaw as well. But philosophy is explained through theories. Okay, we have theories in philosophy. So this option number D seems to be the correct option over here. What poetry is to rhyme, philosophy is to theory. So the second one, the right option is option number D over here. So the third option, it says pharaoh is to dynasty, and then what is to democracy? Now, you have to know the meanings of these things. What's a pharaoh? Now, pharaohs were these ancient kings of Egypt. And what's a dynasty? Dynasty is a ruling family. Okay, so we know in a monarchy, a system of government where the kings or the queens are the heads of the government, uh, it is passed down through dynasty, through families. It doesn't happen through voting as it does in a democracy where people vote the president or the ministers and so on. So pharaoh is to a dynasty, then what is to a democracy? The options given are government, election, president, Canada. Okay. We know Canada cannot be it. It's a name of a country. Okay. It cannot be related to a thing like democracy. And the other one, government is to a democracy. Now, a government can be in every form of government, not only in a democracy. There can be a government also in a monarchy, also in a communist state, and so on. So it is not definitely not the option. Election is to a democracy. Okay. Now it doesn't share the same relation what pharaoh has to a dynasty. So the correct option over here is president. Option C. President is to a democracy what a pharaoh is to a dynasty. Okay, both are the heads of that ruling class. So in a democracy, the president is the head. In a dynasty, the pharaoh is the head. Option number C. Okay, so we have these sets of analogies. Now, analogies may not only be verbal, they can also test your numbers and figures, a little bit of your math skill, and how really imaginative or constructive you are in relation to forming analogies. You know, you really have to maintain a very open slate and look at it from all different points of view. So there's this question over here, question number 4. It says 12 is to 20, 30 is to what? And the options given are 35, 48, 42, and 15. Okay. Now let's see the relationship between 12 and 20. Okay. And it can be 8 times more than 12, which is 20. So 30, if we do 8 times more than 30, it is 38. So there is no option called 38 over here. So that cannot be the formula we can apply over here. So let's look at it from other ways. If we see 12, I can figure out one thing. 3 to the power of 2 plus 3 is equal to 12. So 3 to the power of 2 is 9 plus 3 is 12. Now 4 to the power of 2 plus 4 gives 20. So 4 to the power of 2 is 16 plus 4 gives 20. So 3 to the power of 3 squared and 3 squared plus 3, 4 squared plus 4 gives 20. Okay, 3 squared plus 3 gives 12, 4 squared plus 4 gives 20. So 30. 5 squared plus 5 gives 30. So over here we have to find out 6 squared plus 6. Okay, so 6 squared, 36 plus 6, 42. 42 should be the answer over here. Is there an option which gives us 42? Yes, we have an option. Option C. Option C says 32. So 6 squared plus 6 equal to 30, equal to 42 over here. So option C, the correct option. Okay, so we come to the last of these analogies. So DE, the first set says DE is equal to related to 10. Then HI is related to what? The options given are 17, 20, 46, and 36. Okay, so over here, if we look at how this they have given this relation of DE is related to 10. Okay, so D is the 4th letter of the English alphabets and E is the 5th letter. So we come to 4 and 5. Okay, that gives us 9. So if we multiply DE and E. So 4, the fourth letter with the fifth letter, it gives us 20. 4 into 5 equals to 20. And if we divide it by 2, if we half it, it gives us 10. Okay, so this could be one way of looking at it. D, E, fourth and fifth letters, 4 and 5. 4 into 5, 20. Divide by 2 gives us 10. And H and I. Now H is the eighth letter and I is the ninth letter. And 8 into 9. Okay. 8 into 9 gives us 72. And if we half it, if we divide it by 2, 72 divided by 2 gives us 36. So is there an option called 36 over here? Let's look at it. Yes, there is. The fourth option lists 36. So the fourth option over here happens to be the correct option over here. 36. Okay, that is all for analogies for the day. And finally, we come to this section over here, which is called one-word substitutions. Okay, so the thing with one-word substitutions, excuse me, I drink some water. Okay, so we come to one-word substitutions. So what is one-word substitutions? It is they give you a sentence. We are given a sentence, and the sentence describes something. Okay, usually a noun. So a person who makes furniture, carpenter. Yeah. So things like that. A person who teaches, teacher. So things like that. It's a description which is given, and you have to select the word which applies to that. So, needless to say, your vocabulary needs to be really good to solve these kind of problems. Yeah, and the only way to improve your vocabulary is there is no shortcut. I told you about this. You have to read and read and read. Okay. Now, reading may not be everyone's cup of tea. Okay. Uh, Maybe the very act of reading, the very thought of having to read all of this might be enough to put you off. But how you can possibly get started with reading is reading on your favorite subjects. Okay, the things that interest you. Maybe you like watching a lot of movies. You're a big movie buff, so you can read things on movies. Go to any website or read any magazines which gives you articles on movies. If you are into, say, uh, any sport like cricket, for example, if you are very much interested in cricket, so you can go to different websites which have articles about cricket, or you can read newspapers or magazines where there's an article on cricket. So what it does is it helps you to uh, get into the subject matter because your interest lies in that subject, and that helps you to read through the whole thing with a lot of interest. And only when you are interested in reading through a thing does it really help you in any way. So it cannot be done by force. You cannot be forcing yourself to be reading, to be doing like uh, 30 minutes of reading every day by force. It doesn't really help because you are forcing your brain to do something which it doesn't want to do. So the best way to go about it is reading something which really interests you. Yeah. And a few notes on vocabulary building. If you are really interested in building a vocabulary, I talked about it. Reading is the only way. And many people they try to learn vocabulary by finding words, finding tough words and putting them down on a notebook, finding the meaning, and cram in word each and every word into the heads, maybe 50 words every day in the heads. But it doesn't really serve any purpose because by the time you go through 50 words and try to cram it into your heads, and you go back home after an hour or something, all the words are lost except for one or two maybe. Yeah, so not a good way of going about vocabulary. Yeah. So a better way would be in not really looking out for words, but looking out to read, to gain knowledge. So that is one way in which you build your vocabulary. Like, for example, elderly people take a lot of time to learn new words, but a child, say a child of 10 years. By the time the child is 10 years old, he knows like 20,000 words in his language. 20,000 words we are talking about. And a child of 10 years never carried notebooks. They never carried dictionary to check out meanings of words. But what they did was uh, they were interested in knowing about things. Now we know children are very much interested in knowing stuff. They always ask you why, how, and so on. They are never short of questions. So because they are so curious to know, that is how they end up learning so much. They end up learning so many words when their aim was not to learn the words by themselves, but to know about things. They will ask you, what is this? And you say, this is a table. So they want to know what is that word? What does it mean? So they are looking at symbolism. They are looking at the idea, not at the word itself, because the words mean nothing by itself. Words are ideas. They are symbols for uh, the thoughts and the ideas which they stand for. So, in the process of learning about things, they learn it through words, which is why they never forget them, and which is why the learning curve is so steep. Till 10 years, they learn 20,000 words, but after that, the learning curve comes down drastically. And after someone is, say, 18 or 20 years old, learning curve just goes, in a plane. It doesn't increase at all because you stop learning things. And why do we stop learning things? It is because maybe we stop questioning. We stop questioning. We become conscious of our peers, and we try to come across as smart sometimes, asking the proper questions, the smart questions, and we avoid asking stupid questions. So when we are differentiating between asking questions, smart questions or stupid questions, questions are questions. Now, once that thought comes in that what I'm going to ask might be stupid, according to some, okay, that becomes the first block to your curiosity, to your knowing, to your learning. So that is why children learn more, because they don't care whether it's stupid or it's smart. They want to know. So if the same kind of attitude can be maintained throughout life, I'm sure many of us would learn a lot more things, and in the process also build up our vocabulary. Yeah. So vocabulary is not a standalone thing. It goes hand in hand with your knowledge. Normally, people with a lot of knowledge also have very good vocabulary. It's never the other way around. Yeah. It is not like people with a huge vocabulary doesn't have knowledge. It doesn't really happen. It's always moves together. Your process of knowledge gaining and the words to go with it, the symbols for these ideas. Okay, so we come to these one-word substitutions, which are over here, and the first one says, one who believes in the power of faith. Okay, and the options that are given is parsimonious. The second option is optimist. Uh, Third option is pessimist, and the last option is fatalist. Okay, so one who believes in the power of faith is a fatalist. Okay, you have a clue in the word itself. Fatalist, faith, it's to do with fate. One um, who believes that his own doings or his own free will have nothing to do in the ultimate scheme of things. That fate has its designs on all of us. So he's a fatalist who doesn't believe in the power of chance. So the other options are wrong, of course. Not pessimist, not optimist, not parsimonious. Okay. So the next one we have over here, it says a disease which spreads by contact. And the options given are fatal, incurable, infectious, and contagious. Okay. Now, a disease which spreads by contact. Okay. What is fatal? Fatal is something which results in your death. Yeah. So that is not the case. So if it was a disease which results in death, we can say it's fatal. But over here, it spreads by contact, not fatal. Okay. The next one is incurable, a disease which cannot be cured. That would be incurable. But over here, we are only talking about spreading by contact. So that is not the option again. The next one says infectious. Okay. Yeah. Infectious can be because infectious disease, it spreads, it's infected, but it can be spread through different means. It can be spread through air, it can be spread through water, soil, and so on, not only through contact. But something which is contagious, the fourth option, is always diseases which spreads through contact, one person to another or one animal to another, spreads through direct contact, direct physical contact. That is contagious disease, which spreads by contact. Okay, so option D is the correct option for question number 2 over here. And number 3, we have use of force or threats to get someone to agree to something. Okay, use of force or threat. Okay, the options given are cajolement. Second option is coercion. Third option is conviction, and the last option is confession. Now we have to know the slight differences in meanings among all these options. Now, when you threaten someone or use force to make someone agree to something, okay, using force. Cajolement is when you are not really forcing, but requesting someone, maybe enticing someone, or trying to attract someone to do something, to agree to something. Yeah, you are trying other means, but not force. Coercion is used by force. Of course, it's force. So that can be the answer. But let's look at the other ones. They say conviction. Okay, conviction would not be use of force again. Conviction would be through the use of proper explanation. Yeah, and confession. Of course, no, because in confession we confess some crime or some desire inside us. Okay, that is confession. So the correct option over here is option number B, which says coercion, the use of force or threats to get someone agree to something. Okay, so come to the next one. It says to examine one's thoughts and feelings. Okay, to examine one's thoughts and feelings, and the options given over here are meditation, reflection, introspection, retrospection. Okay. Now, what is the most the appropriate term to say to examine one's thoughts and feelings? Can we say meditation? No, meditation is not examining thoughts and feelings. Meditation is, you know what, you know, diverting your mind to someplace else and meditating, like in praying. You are, you know, basically getting out of your stress and doing things like yoga. That is meditation. Okay. Reflection. Reflection is when you're thinking back about something, any incident or anything in the past. When you're thinking about something, that is reflection. Uh, Introspection. Okay. Introspection can be an answer because introspection involves examining one's thoughts and feelings. What about retrospection? Retrospection is thinking about thoughts and feelings left behind, that is in the past. Okay, so the correct option over here is option number C, which says introspection, examining one's thoughts and feelings. Okay, so the next one, number 5, it says one who collects coins as a hobby, and the options given are numismatist, statistician, philatelist, and ornithologist. Okay. Now your vocabulary needs to be really strong to solve questions like these, because you have to know what these mean, and these words are not very commonly used words. Yeah. So let's look up these words. Uh, a numismatist is someone who collects coins as a hobby. This is the correct option. But the others, statisticians, we know what statisticians do. They collect statistics and data of different things. Uh, who is a philatelist? Philatelist is someone who collects stamps as a hobby. A stamp collector is a philatelist. And who is an auth ornithologist? Sorry, it's a bit of a tongue twister. Ornithologist, okay. Ornithologist is someone who is very interested in birds, who has a lot of knowledge about birds. Okay, it's an ornithologist. So the correct option over here, as we can see, is option number 1, obviously, a numismatist, one who collects coins as a hobby. Okay. So we come to the last of our one-word substitutions. It says, one who cannot be easily pleased. Okay, the options given are frightening, uh, fastidious, feminist, and iconoclast. Okay, the one who cannot be easily pleased is someone who is fastidious. Okay, fastidious is someone who cannot be easily pleased. So he is not someone who is frightening or who is a feminist or who is an iconoclast. Okay, yeah. So that is all for one-word substitutions, and finally we come down to reading comprehension. Okay, because that is a lengthy topic, and many of the reading comprehensions that I've seen in some Infosys papers happen to be very a little more difficult than usual uh, competitive exams tests and so on. The level of the reading comprehension. Now, reading comprehension can be different in different ways. The passage may be difficult. It can consist of very difficult words. It can consist of very difficult questions. A simple passage can also have very difficult questions. Okay, so we come to a reading comprehension, and there are different ways in which you can solve these reading comprehensions. So it really depends on what really suits you, what method suits you. Some people talk about how do you handle reading comprehension. So what do you do first? Do you read the passage first, or you read the questions first? So someone might tell you, read the question first, so you know where exactly to look in the passage. But I'm going to tell you, and this is how I do it, and I find it to be the most natural way. Now, first, read through the passage, know what it's about, know what is the central idea, know what is the gist of the passage, what is it trying to say, all these kind of things. And once you've got a grasp of what it's trying to say, when you come to the question, you can always go back to the passage to find out where exactly the answer is. So the answer may not be directly in the passage, it can also be a lot of interpolations and assumptions. Okay, you might have to assume things, um, looking at things that are already there in the passage. Yeah, so things which may not be directly stated, but it may be said in a different way, or it may be implied, which is not said directly. So we come to this passage which is given, and there's this reading comprehension passage. It's a pretty not a very short passage, and it's of and the difficulty level would be, I'd say, moderate, not very difficult, not too easy either. It's like a moderate level. So let's read through this first, the reading comprehension, and then try to answer the questions which come on after this. So I'm going to read this for you. Just before Christmas in 1944, a letter arrived at a house in Philadelphia. The postmark was from Tuskegee, Alabama, so we all knew who it came from. We excitedly gathered around Mother as she opened it at the kitchen table. The letter read like this, it's given in italics. Okay, my dear Mother, I did not get the leave I expected for Christmas. I will miss all of you. Please leave the Christmas tree up until I make it back. I hope to be home by March. Love from your son, Clifton. Okay, so the letter ends over here and the passage continues. I was 17 years old at the time. My heart sank. I felt a profound sadness that my favorite brother would not be home for Christmas. He was one of the Tuskegee Airmen and was responsible for maintaining the airplanes flying off to fight in World War II. Okay, my mother, being the optimist she always was, said, well, it looks like we'll get to have two Christmases this year. After Christmas, my sister and I worked together to make sure we kept that Christmas tree looking as pretty as possible. This was no easy feat. So by mid-January, the branches grew so low to the ground that they became a sliding board for the decorations. Each day, ornaments would come crashing to the ground, and there were brand new sprinklings of pine needles all over the wooden floor. My sister and I took turns sweeping them up. We repositioned the ornaments with stronger branches on the tree, hoping they would stay on. Each time we freshened that tree up, my sister and I were full of thoughts about Clifton and how happy we would be to see him again. It made us feel that he was close by, even though he was hundreds of miles away. So on March 5th, the doorbell rang, and we ran to the door and gave Clifton a big hug. As he hugged Mother, I could see him peek over her head to the Christmas tree, at the Christmas tree, I'm sorry. It's beautiful, he said. Thank you. Clifton opened his presents and told us all sorts of stories about his work in Tuskegee. That night, as we slept, we heard a crash in the living room. We all ran to see what had happened. The tree had toppled onto the sofa, and there were needles and broken ornaments everywhere. We all had a good laugh. It was fortuitous Clifton got home when he did. Okay, so before getting into the questions, we have to know what is the gist of this passage. What is this passage all about? And it's about this family in which place was it? Philadelphia. Yeah, it's in Philadelphia. So a letter arrives to their home, and the letter states something that someone will not be home for Christmas. The son, in this case. So the letter was written to the mother. He won't be home for Christmas, and he would be home only in March. But he wants the Christmas tree to stay. So the sisters, his sisters, get very um, depressed. I won't say depressed, but sad in a way because their favorite brother is not coming home for Christmas. And but the mother happens to be a big optimist, so she says we'll be having two Christmases, once now in December and then in March when he comes back. So he told in the letter he's coming back in March, and he's also one of the Tuskegee Airmen fighting in the war. So finally, the branches in the tree, when they were trying to maintain the Christmas tree, the branches were drooping very low, and they were not being able to keep up with the branches there. So the sisters tried their hardest to put up the tree in a good position, but every day the branches of the tree kept on drooping low and low, and the ornaments that they had stuck onto the branches would come sliding down one by one because the branches were drooping. Then finally, in March, when the brother arrives and he finds the tree, he was very happy to find the tree still there. But that same night, the tree came crashing down and everything came crashing down. That is why it says it was fortuitous that Clifton arrived when he did, because he was very lucky. Because on the day he came, he reached home, that tree had completely crashed. It didn't happen one day before. One it up? No viewers. Finishing? Okay. For how long? I haven't seen. There was one when I started. That was you. Now there's no one. Finish it.